The morning my husband gave me the gift, everyone told me how lucky I was. It was my birthday. The kitchen smelled like coffee and toast, and he stood there smiling too hard, holding a sleek white box tied with a ribbon. He said it was something to make my life easier, something to show how proud he was of me. I believed him. At least I wanted to. I had spent the last 5 years building my career from nothing: late nights, rejected applications, quiet tears in office bathrooms. My work wasn't just a job. It was proof that I was more than someone's wife, more than the girl who gave up comfort to build something of her own. When I opened the box, my smile froze. Inside was a brand new home office setup: monitor, printer, planner, beautiful, expensive, thoughtful on the surface. He kissed my forehead and said, "Now you won't need to go into the office so much. You can stay home more. With me." Everyone clapped. I laughed, but something inside my chest tightened, because he hadn't asked me what I wanted. And when I later checked my work email, I noticed something strange. My upcoming promotion meeting had been rescheduled. By him. From my account. That was the moment the gift stopped feeling like love, and I began to wonder what else he was willing to take from me, quietly, politely, with a smile. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. Marriage teaches you compromise, I reminded myself. Maybe he really thought working from home would help me. Maybe the email change was a misunderstanding, an accident. Love deserved the benefit of the doubt. But small things began to pile up. He started helping more, replying to messages when I was in the shower, organizing my calendar without asking, reminding me how stressful my job had made me lately. Every concern sounded gentle. Every suggestion sounded reasonable. "You've been so tired," he'd say. "I just don't want you burning out." When I mentioned going into the office, his mood shifted. Not anger, something quieter. Disappointment. Like I was choosing work over him, even when he never said it out loud. Then my manager called. She asked why I'd requested to step back from leadership opportunities for personal reasons. I laughed at first, thinking it was a mistake, until she forwarded the message. It was written in my voice, signed with my name. That night I confronted him. He didn't deny it. He only sighed and said, "I knew you'd thank me later." That was when I realized this wasn't protection. It was control. And the man I trusted most was quietly rewriting my future without my consent. After that, the house felt smaller. Every room held echoes of conversations I hadn't known were happening. Every shared device felt like an open door I hadn't locked. I changed passwords, logged out, watched him more closely. He noticed. He began telling friends how fragile I'd been lately, how I was overwhelmed, how he was stepping up for both of us. They nodded at him with sympathy, then looked at me with concern. I felt myself shrinking. At work, opportunities slipped away politely, projects reassigned, invitations forgotten. Not because I wasn't capable, but because someone had convinced them I wasn't available. At home, he became softer, kinder. He cooked dinners, left notes, bought flowers, and somehow that hurt more, because every act of love now felt like a transaction. Like proof he was building a case against me, one where I didn't need ambition, only comfort. One evening, as I sat at my desk staring at a rejection email, I realized something terrifying. If I stayed quiet much longer, I would start believing him. That I was too tired, too emotional, too much. And the scariest part wasn't what he was doing to my career. It was how close I was to letting it happen. The more I pushed back, the gentler he became. He started showing up at my office unannounced, bringing lunch, smiling at my coworkers like a devoted husband. He'd wrap an arm around my shoulders and say things like, "I'm just making sure she remembers to eat. She forgets when she's stressed." They laughed. I smiled. Inside I burned. That night, he apologized for overstepping, then followed it with a soft confession. He said he was scared of losing me, that my success felt like a distance he couldn't cross, that he only wanted to protect our marriage. I almost believed him. But later, alone in bed, I scrolled through old versions of my emails and found more edits. More messages sent without my knowledge. He hadn't just touched my schedule. He had been shaping a narrative. Stories like this don't always come with bruises. Sometimes they come wrapped as concern, and you don't realize what you're losing until it's almost gone. That realization settled heavy in my chest. Because if I spoke up, I risked everything. My marriage, my reputation, my stability. And if I didn't, I risked disappearing entirely. The gift became his favorite proof of love. Every time I tried to work late or step out for a meeting, he'd gesture toward the home office. "I did all this for you," he'd say, calm but pointed, "so you wouldn't have to push yourself so hard." My manager stopped calling altogether. Then came the performance review I never asked for. It arrived in my inbox already signed, requesting a temporary role reduction to focus on family priorities. I felt sick. That night, I finally told my sister everything. The emails, the calendar changes, the way he spoke for me when I wasn't there. She didn't hesitate. She said one sentence that changed everything. "This isn't love. It's sabotage." I looked around the house we'd built together, the photos, the furniture, the life that looked so perfect from the outside. For the first time, I admitted the truth to myself. The man who said he loved me was the same man standing between me and the future I worked for. And the scariest part was knowing, if I challenged him openly, he wouldn't fight loud. He would fight smart. After my sister's words, I stopped reacting and started watching. I saved copies of everything, every altered email, every calendar change, every message sent while I slept. I learned how to move quietly in my own life, pretending nothing had changed while preparing for the moment it had to. At home, he seemed pleased, relieved even. He took my silence as surrender. He told me how proud he was that I was finally slowing down. He spoke about starting a family, about how nice it would be if I didn't have to work at all someday. I nodded. At work, I requested a private meeting with my manager. Not to accuse, yet, just to listen. She told me they'd been worried about me, that I had sounded unsure, conflicted, overwhelmed in my emails. I asked if I could see them. When she read them back to me out loud, something shifted in the room. My voice didn't sound like mine. The doubts weren't thoughts I'd ever had. For the first time, someone else noticed. I left the office shaking but hopeful, because the truth, once seen, could not be unseen. And at home that night, as he kissed my forehead and asked if I felt lighter, I realized I was standing at the edge of a choice. Stay quiet and stay married, or speak, and risk losing everything I'd built. The opportunity I'd been denied came back when I least expected it. My manager called me into her office again. This time, HR was there. They asked careful questions. They didn't accuse, but they listened. I told the truth. Not emotionally, not dramatically, just clearly. I showed them the evidence. The room went silent. They believed me. That night, I didn't tell my husband where I'd been. I watched him talk, confident, affectionate, certain of control, and I saw him clearly for the first time. Not as my partner, but as someone who couldn't stand standing beside me unless I was smaller. 2 days later, I received an email restoring my role. My promotion meeting was back on the calendar, and that was when he noticed. He didn't yell. He didn't plead. He smiled thinly and said, "I thought we were on the same team." I met his eyes and said, "We were, until you decided winning mattered more than me." His expression changed, just for a second, and I knew the quiet war at home was about to turn loud. He didn't explode the way I expected. Instead, he became cold, precise. He stopped touching me, stopped pretending. The house filled with a silence sharper than shouting. He started telling people I was being influenced, that work was turning me against him, that I was changing. He wasn't wrong about that part. One evening, he placed the gift back on the table between us. The home office, still perfect, still untouched in places. He said I was being ungrateful, that everything he did was for us, that no one would ever love me the way he did. For a moment, doubt crept in. Marriage has a way of making you question your own memory, your own strength. I looked at the life we'd built and wondered if choosing myself meant burning it all down. Then my manager called to confirm the promotion. I felt something steady return to my chest. That night I packed a bag. Just essentials. No speeches. No apologies. As I reached the door, he finally asked, "Are you really throwing this away?" I turned back once and said, "You already tried to. I'm just refusing to let you finish." I left before he could answer. But even as the door closed behind me, fear followed close. Because walking away was one thing. Staying gone would be harder. I moved into a small apartment with borrowed furniture and quiet mornings. At first, the silence scared me. Then it healed me. Work came back into focus, not as an escape, but as a part of myself I'd almost lost. The promotion came through. So did the respect I hadn't realized had been missing. He tried to reach out, messages framed as concern, as regret, as love. I didn't respond. Months later, I donated the gift. The desk. The monitor. All of it. I watched strangers carry it away and felt lighter than I had in years. Because love doesn't shrink you to keep itself comfortable. Real love doesn't rewrite your voice, manage your ambition, or call control a sacrifice. I'm still rebuilding, still learning how to trust my instincts again. But every morning, when I sit at my new desk, one I chose for myself, I remember this. Sometimes the bravest career move you make isn't a promotion. It's choosing yourself, even when the person who promised to love you tried to take that choice away.